I never imagined the man I locked up as a playboy was actually a millionaire doctor. My heart raced that day. I felt like I'd opened Pandora's box. I will never forget the moment everything changed. It was a drizzly Tuesday morning. I sat in my small, dimly lit office, overflowing with paperwork and empty takeout containers. The dark clouds outside mirrored my mood. That's when he walked in. He was ruggedly handsome, with a confident stride that screamed trouble. Dark hair, piercing blue eyes, and a smirk that could make any heart skip a beat. I thought he was just another player, another predator prancing through life without a care. But there was something deeper, something unsettling behind those charming features. We faced off, me a struggling detective with stains on my shirt, him a perfect enigma in a tailored suit. As I read his file, my fingers trembled. Arrested for reckless behavior, publicly humiliating women. The Playboy profile fit him like a glove. But those icy blue eyes. They held a secret. I felt the tension in the air. A quiet hum, like a storm brewing. Without warning, he leaned closer, his voice smooth as silk. "You have no idea who I am, do you?" There was a challenge in his tone, a spark that ignited my curiosity. I could smell simmering piquancy from his cologne, something exotic. My heart raced, pounding like a drum. I fought the urge to lean in closer, every instinct screamed to be cautious. I glanced at the photos pinned on my wall: my dad, my brother, my late mother. They trusted me to protect the innocent, but what if I had misjudged him? What if he was more than just a rich playboy? "Why were you trying to escape?" I asked, the weight of the question hanging between us. His smirk faltered for a split second. Just long enough for me to notice something, a crack in the armor. "Because I don't belong here," he said. "But the world sees what it wants to see." What was he hiding? Silence engulfed us. I studied his face. Was it pain or anger? I couldn't tell. Just then, the phone rang, breaking the spell. I jerked back, heart racing again. I quickly grabbed the receiver, my mind still spinning. As I spoke to the officer on the line, I cast a glance at him. He was staring intently at me. There was something desperate in his gaze. When I hung up, the room felt charged with unspoken words. I could feel my cheeks warm under his scrutiny. "Who are you really?" I demanded. He leaned back, his expression shifting. "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." It was a whisper, but it pierced the thick air between us. The door creaked open behind me, and my partner walked in. I turned away, momentarily distracted. When I looked back, he was gone. The chair he occupied still spun slightly, a ghost of his presence lingering. Was he really just a playboy? Or was there more to the man in the tailored suit? My mind raced, piecing together fragments of the puzzle. Every shred of evidence felt like a puzzle piece, but none seemed to fit. What had I uncovered? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The office felt emptier without him, emptier than it ever had. I tried to shake the remnants of our confrontation from my mind as I gathered the scattered notes on my desk. The echoes of his voice, low and compelling, reverberated in my thoughts. The world sees what it wants to see. What had I missed? What lay beneath the surface of his charming facade? Hours passed, turning into an elongated string of mundane tasks as I attempted to dismiss my growing obsession. My partner, Craig, shuffled through the stack of papers on his desk, occasionally glancing at me with a quizzical expression. He could sense something was off. As I struggled to focus, my phone lit up with an incoming message. It was a text from an unknown number, just one line: "You have no idea what you're getting into." Cold dread spiraled through my veins. Shoving the device back in my pocket, I turned to Craig. "Did you find anything more about the guy I had this morning?" He raised an eyebrow, concern etched on his face. "What are you getting at, Sarah? You know he doesn't have any prior serious charges, right? Just a lot of minor stuff from his wild days." "But there is something more," I replied, my voice a little too fervent. "I don't think he's just a playboy. I feel it in my gut." Craig rolled his eyes slightly. "Look, we all have a story. You can't keep investing personally in every case. It clouds your judgment." I wanted to scream that this wasn't about clouded judgment, that it was about something deeper and more ominous. But instead, I focused on the paperwork strewn across my desk, desperate to uncover any clue that would lead me toward the truth about him. As day turned to night, my office grew quieter. The drizzling rain outside was calming, but I felt anything but. Each drop against the window struck out at my mounting unease. I grabbed my coat and headed toward the precinct exit, determination propelling my steps forward. I needed answers, and I wasn't about to let this go. The streets were slick with rain. The world around me seemed a blurred watercolor. The lights bled into one another as my thoughts spiraled. I didn't have a plan, just a desperate need to confront whoever this mystery was and discover the truth. And no sooner had I taken a few steps than a familiar figure emerged through the mist. It was him, standing just under a street lamp, the soft glow accentuating his sharp features. Had he been waiting for me? "Why are you following me?" I demanded, my heart racing once more. "It's not what you think," he replied, raising his hands in the air defensively. "I didn't mean to startle you. I just wanted to talk." "Talk about what?" "How you tricked me. How you manipulated everyone around you." I shot back, unwilling to mask my frustration. "When you see me, you only see the playboy," he countered, stepping closer. "But I'm more than that. I need you to understand." A gust of wind swept between us, but I stood firm, shaking my head. "You need to leave, or I'll call for backup." He halted, startled, and for a moment, the mask slipped again. No longer was he just a rugged figure cast in shadow, but a man worn and frayed at the edges, nervous energy radiating through his stance. "Please," he said, vulnerability glazing over his voice. "You have to trust me just for a moment. I'm being hunted. And they will come for you too if you don't let me explain." Before I could react, a car skidded around a corner, tires screeching against the wet pavement. The headlights fell on us, harsh and blinding. My instincts kicked in, adrenaline flooding my blood as I stepped in front of him, ready to push him away. "Get back!" I yelled, scanning for danger, but as the car screeched to a halt just a meter away, a grotesque wave of familiarity washed over me. Craig, my partner, stepped out from behind the wheel, features contorted with alarm. "Sarah, get away from him!" he shouted, reaching for his sidearm. My head spun, confusion wrapping around my thoughts like a vice. "Craig, no!" But it was too late. The world faded as I felt a rush, a split second of clarity before everything blurred. In that moment, I realized that the very thing I sought to uncover was spiraling into chaos. Just as I prepared to shout again, a deafening echo broke through, a gunshot ringing out in the night like the final curtain falling on a tragic play. The silence after the shot was suffocating. My ears rang with the articulate sound of despair, and as if time froze in that heartbeat, I turned to see Craig, wide-eyed, weapon drawn but trembling in place, his resolve wavering. "Sarah," he yelled, but his voice resonated with confusion. All around us, droplets of rain continued their descent, relentlessly drumming against the pavement, contaminating the air with an almost spectral stillness. I blinked, my vision dimming for a moment as I fought to piece together what had just happened. The man I had confronted, the enigma I was desperately trying to reach, had fallen to one knee, clutching his side. Panic surged, washing away the impending shock that lingered in my mind. "Call an ambulance." I shouted at Craig, who remained rooted to the spot, still pointlessly aiming his firearm. What have you done? My throat constricted around the words, raw disbelief washing over me like the storm. I thought Craig stuttered, and I could see the turmoil beneath his protective instinct. I thought he was going to hurt you. With a shaky hand, I reached for the injured man, who grimaced, his face twisted in a mixture of pain and shock. Look at me, I demanded, though my own heart raced, fear gripping me tightly. What is your name? Derek, he gasped, every word laced with effort. His eyes, which were usually sharp and playful, now brimmed with something softer: fear, trust, desperation. Derek, stay with me. Help is coming, I urged, pressing my hands against the wound, feeling the warmth seep through my fingers. He winced, his breath a harrowing struggle. Why were you being hunted? Who? Not now, he muttered, his voice slipping. They know you need to be careful. A distant siren wailed, a thread of hope threading through the chaos, but I couldn't shake the dread tightening my chest. Both Derek and Craig were losing themselves within the fallout of this moment, and I feared that our paths had intertwined in ways none of us could predict. As the sound of approaching help grew louder, I could almost feel my life unraveling in slow motion. The unanswered questions piled high, a cacophony of fear pouring into my mind. Why had Derek really come to me? Why did Craig trust his instincts over mine? The thumping of booted feet echoed down the street as responders arrived. I looked at Derek, tears welling in my eyes despite my endless resolve not to cry. Hold on, please, I whispered, choking on my fear. Don't leave me. I need to know what is going on. His eyes darted past me. They come for you, you need to run, he said, and I struggled to understand if his words were a warning or a plea. A team of paramedics descended around us, their presence both a comfort and a further wrecking ball to the fragile peace I'd managed to hold on to. They rushed to assess Derek, urgency radiating through their motions. Craig stepped to the side, his breathing heavy, indecision washing over his features. Why, Craig? I asked, suddenly filled with another shadow of betrayal. Why didn't you trust me? I thought you were in danger. I didn't think exactly. You didn't think. I shouted, frustration spearing through me, the familiar warmth of anger igniting. You jumped to the worst assumption because you didn't see what was right in front of you. Enough. A paramedic barked, pushing me back as they worked frantically on Derek, whose eyes locked with mine in an unnerving understanding. Don't blame him, he coughed, his voice barely more than a raspy whisper, defiance igniting behind the pain. I didn't want this. But as they loaded him onto a stretcher, darkness began to creep into the edges of my vision. The world pressed on me heavily. Information, chaos, emotions tangled into one incomprehensible knot. I stood frozen, watching the man I didn't truly know being whisked away while my partner, my friend, silently fell apart beside me. What had I stepped into? And just like that, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the screen lighting up with another message that whispered in tantalizing familiarity, you have no idea what you're getting into. I glanced at it, anxiety roiling in my stomach, not knowing whether it was a threat or assurance that the worst was yet to come. The sirens faded into the night, but the sense of foreboding only deepened, standing sentinel over me like the rain drenching the streets. I had reached a precipice, and the truth, obscure and shadowy, lay just beyond the edge. The flickering lights of the ambulance danced off the damp pavement as it pulled away, carrying Derek into an uncertain future. I felt like I was watching a piece of my life drift away along with him. The rain mixed with my tears, rendering me nearly invisible as my world shrank down to the stark, echoing sound of my own heartbeat and the chaos of emotions vying for dominance inside me. Sarah. Craig's voice broke through my daze, thick with the weight of his guilt. I turned away from the road, where Derek's silhouette was lost to the distance. Sarah, wait. I stepped back, the chill of the rain washing over me like a shroud. Get away from me, Craig. I snapped, the venom in my voice more reflective of my fear than my true feelings. You don't understand anything. He reached for my arm, but I jerked away. You don't get to touch me right now. You destroyed everything. Please, just listen. His eyes were frantic, pleading. That guy, he was a threat. I thought I was saving you. By shooting him. The words felt heavy on my lips, but I needed him to understand the irrevocable damage he had done. You didn't save anyone. You could have killed me. You could have ruined countless lives with that single moment of panic. You've put a target on our backs. Suddenly, the reality of our predicament crashed over me like the relentless downpour. I didn't even know who he was, Craig. What if we just lost our only chance at the truth? I was drowning in uncertainty, and it felt all-consuming. A moment of silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. The sirens had faded, leaving behind an eerie calm that did absolutely nothing to alleviate the storm inside me. I wanted to scream, to lash out at the world for its relentless cruelty. Just when I thought I could hold myself together, I felt my resolve waver. In the distance, however, there was a figure approaching through the shadows, cloaked in the night. I squinted, and against the dim light of the street lamps, I recognized him. It was Derek's brother, Adrian, a man I had only met briefly at a charity event, his presence always defined by charm and confidence. Sarah. His voice was smooth but edged with urgency as he moved closer, his brow furrowed. What happened? I just got a call from the hospital. I opened my mouth to tell him, to spill everything I had witnessed, but the words lodged painfully in my throat. Instead, I could only shake my head, frustration boiling just beneath the surface. Craig stepped forward, attempting to explain. Adrian, Derek was no, I interrupted, my voice slicing through the air with a unique intensity. Let me speak. Adrian's piercing gaze met mine, and for a brief moment, I sensed his understanding. My heart pounded with the urgency of my next words. He was shot because of something he was caught up in. And now I need to see him, Adrian said, the intense focus in his eyes honing in on me as if I were a lifeline. He needs me. You have to help me. Help? I scoffed, my anger flaring once more. Do you even know what he's involved in? Adrian took a step closer, urgency radiating off his frame. You don't understand. I've been trying to protect him, but I thought he was safe. I had no idea he was planning to see you. There was something in his expression, a vulnerability that momentarily softened my resentment. He was afraid, Adrian. Afraid of what would happen to you if anyone found out you were connected. My voice barely rose above a whisper, but the word afraid echoed around us, holding a deeper meaning, a raw truth none of us wanted to confront. What are you trying to say? Craig interjected, shifting uncomfortably as the weight of our predicament settled heavily on his shoulders. Adrian turned from Craig back to me. The people Derek owes money to, they're not just criminals. They know everything about him, about us. If they figure out that he's exposed, they won't stop until they destroy everything he cares about. That includes you. My heart sank. I felt the ground beneath me shift as the reality of this revelation hit me like a crashing wave. You have to be kidding, I breathed, the air feeling inadequate in my lungs. No, Sarah. I swear. And now they know you are connected too. The sense of foreboding deepened, threatening to swallow me whole. My mind raced, unable to process the possibilities. I had already lost more than I had anticipated, and the weight of impending doom pressed down on my chest. That I looked at Craig, the betrayal still simmering beneath my surface but hinted at confusion in his eyes. What are we going to do? I murmured, but all of us seemed to know that we were standing at the edge of an abyss with no clear way down. Adrian's resolve strengthened as he met both of our gazes. We fight back. We have to find out what they want before it's too late. Before they come for both of you. But just as hope dared to flicker, the ominous hum of an engine echoed in the distance, slowly approaching. My breath hitched as I exchanged a frantic glance with Craig and Adrian, the very air around us thickening with dread. The shadows were not just lingering, they were coming for us, and perhaps, just perhaps, I should have listened when Derek warned me to run. The engine pulled around the corner, its headlights slicing through the torrential rain like a knife through flesh. I felt my heart lurch, a visceral reaction to the reality of our precarious situation. The car slowed near us, and in that heartbeat, time seemed to stretch painfully. I barely registered Craig's hand tighten at my side or the alarm on Adrian's face. "Get down!" Adrian shouted, pushing me behind him as he instinctively shielded me from the unknown threat. He had taken on the role of protector effortlessly, enacting a defense I longed for yet felt undeserving of. A figure emerged from the car, a man dressed in a tailored suit, his posture radiating a sense of authority that sent shivers down my spine. He stepped into the meager light, revealing a face that was both unfamiliar and disconcertingly calm. For a fleeting moment, I felt a flicker of recognition, as if he were a ghost from another life. "Derek's brother," the man said, his voice smooth yet laced with menace. "I've been looking for you." Adrian straightened, a surge of defiance coursing through him. "And who the hell are you?" "Mason," he replied, infusing his name with a sense of weight. "I'm here to make sure our investment stays intact." "Mason?" I echoed, confusion swirling within me. The name felt like a pebble thrown into a still pond, causing ripples of unease. "What are you talking about?" Mason smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, you must be Sarah, the girl who thinks she can save him." His gaze shifted from Adrian to Craig, the smirk augmenting the sharpness of his next words. "Such misguided loyalty. You really should have stayed out of this." I didn't know what to say. My tongue felt like lead in my mouth as panic began to claw its way up my throat. I felt so exposed, my life laid bare before a man whose intentions were as murky as the rainwater pooling at our feet. "Where's Derek?" Adrian demanded, his voice low and fierce. "What do you want from us?" Mason stepped forward, the challenge in Adrian's stance merely benign to him. "What I want is simple, reassurance that the debt Derek owes is settled. But instead of securing that, he put you both in danger." "I told you to leave him out of this," Adrian shot back. "You think you can threaten us and get away with it?" There was a chilling laugh that escaped Mason's lips, a sound that resonated with an unsettling familiarity. "Oh, dear Adrian, I don't need to threaten you. Your brother did enough of that himself. Every choice he made pushed you both closer to ruin." His voice turned insidious. "The moment you involved Sarah, you put a target on her back too." I felt the world fracture around me. Each spoken word was a jagged piece of glass, fracturing any semblance of security I thought I possessed. The depth of Derek's situation unfurled before my eyes like a sinister flower blooming in darkness. The truth burrowed deeper, poisoning what little hope remained. How could he do this? I whispered, more to myself than to anyone else. "You should have known," Mason said, his tone almost mocking. "He was never just a playboy." Adrian stepped in front of me, and I felt a flicker of warmth amidst the dread swirling around us. "What do you want?" he said, anger laced with desperation. "Just leave her out of it." Mason's smile broadened, the glint in his eyes predatory. "Oh, darling, she's too deep in now. You all are." The air thickened as the unspoken gravity of our past decisions rooted deeper into our chests. My body trembled not from fear of Mason but from the realization that I had fallen into a web so intricately designed that escape felt impossible. Craig inhaled sharply, anger shifting into worry as he looked over at me. Beneath the waves of his shadowy intentions, I saw a glimmer of kindness, the willingness to protect not just me but also Adrian. "We'll make you a deal," Craig said suddenly, firm and unwavering. "You tell us what Derek needs to get out of this, and we'll figure out a way for it to happen." Mason's expression shifted slightly, intrigue mingling with amusement. "You think you can bargain with me? You clearly don't understand how deep this rabbit hole goes. What if we do?" I challenged, my voice tipping into defiance. Desperation poured from my heart like a waterfall, infusing each word with urgency. What if we offer something more than you want? For a moment, the world held its breath as Mason replayed my offer in his mind, his calculating gaze boring into me. The potential for a new path lay before me, but the fear of what that could mean curled around my heart. Perhaps this could work, Mason conceded, taking a step closer. Or maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of something far more entertaining. I held my breath, anxiety gripping my chest. And just like that, Mason's dark grin unsettled me deeply, leaving a bitter taste on my tongue that promised nothing but chaos ahead. As I stood amidst the raindrops cascading around us, the shadows felt closer than ever, their intentions swirling like an ominous storm. The collision of our fates felt both inevitable and daunting, and I couldn't help but wonder, had I really been prepared for this? And then, before I could fully process the weight of our choices, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket, a message from an unknown number. I hesitated, knowing full well the horrors that could unfold from a single text. When I finally glanced at the screen, my heart dropped, the words burning into my consciousness, "Meet me where it all began. Time's running out for Derek." In that moment, the world spun beneath my feet, and I realized we were only beginning to uncover the truth. The rain continued to fall, drenching the ground and creating a tangled rhythm of despair and uncertainty. I stood frozen, staring at the chilling message on my phone, my heart racing as if it were trying to outrun the consequences of every choice we had made. Time's running out for Derek. The weight of the words settled heavily over me, suffocating in its implications. Adrian's voice broke through the thick tension, pulling me back from the precipice of panic. "What does it say, Sarah?" he pressed, his eyes sharp with concern. I hesitated, the weight of the truth choking at my throat. When I finally found the strength to share the message, I sensed a shift around us. The rain seemed to quiet, as if the universe was leaning in to listen. There was a flicker of understanding that passed between Adrian and Craig, a silent acknowledgement that this was no longer just about Derek, it was about all of us. "They want me to meet someone," I said, my voice trembling. "Where it all began." "Where?" Craig asked, stepping closer, his protective instincts flaring again. "The hospital. They want me to go back to the beginning of all this," I whispered, the memories of those early days flooding my mind. The nervous energy dancing within the sterile hallways, the way Derek had tipped my world upside down with his charm, and the moment I first felt his warmth, not knowing then how quickly it could all turn cold. "Absolutely not," Adrian said vehemently. "We're not letting you go alone. You don't know what these people want. What if they want to help Derek?" The words slipped from my lips, but even as I said them, an inner voice screamed at me. I knew better than to trust Mason or anyone associated with him. "Or they want to use you as bait," Craig countered, his expression hardening. "This isn't a game, Sarah." As much as I wanted to retort, to convince them that I could handle this, deep down I knew I wasn't in control anymore. The stakes had risen into a territory I couldn't comprehend, and the thought of what might happen to Derek, what could happen to me, lagged heavily in the air. I could almost hear the clock ticking, reminding me that every second counted. "I have to go," I said, each word wrapped in determination. "I can't just ignore it. Derek is in trouble, and if there's any chance I can help by putting yourself in danger." Adrian's voice cracked slightly, revealing a vulnerability that tugged at my heart. "Sarah, we can find another way. We can work together." A moment of silence fell between us, thick with unspoken fears and unresolved tensions. I glanced at Mason, who loomed in the background, his smug expression gleaming in the darkness. I could sense the satisfaction rolling off him, as though he were savoring our predicament, a puppeteer delighting in the emotional unraveling of his marionettes. "I want to let you go alone," Adrian insisted again, a vow simmering in his tone. The resolve in his words felt like a warmth against the chill gnawing at my bones, a stubborn refusal to allow me to shoulder this burden alone, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite. Regardless of Mason's implications, I was no longer merely a pawn, I could fight. I could risk. "Okay," I finally relented, my mind racing with the possibilities. We'll go together. But we need a plan. We need to be smart about this. As we huddled closer, sharing our fears and forming a strategy for what awaited us, a solitary thought kept resurfacing. What if everything I faced there brought forth not only the answers about Derek but also the untold stories of the man he truly was beneath the facade of a playboy? What if I learned things that would change my perception forever? The question climbed into my chest, twisting tight and leaving me breathless in its wake. I glanced towards the dim glow of the car headlights, the storm continuing to rage until a sudden flash illuminated everything, a lightning strike that thundered through my bones and momentarily blinded me. Yet in that blinding light, another figure danced at the edge of my vision, a silhouette emerging from the shadows that felt achingly familiar. My heart lurched, and my breath caught as I squinted against the downpour. It couldn't be. With each step, the figure became clearer. My heartbeat faltered, a senseless hope flaring with furious intensity, mingling with fear that it was Derek. But he was different. He looked haggard, shadowed by something dark and terrible. The storm raged behind him, emphasizing the weight of the emotions etched across his face. "What have you done?" he breathed, his voice trembling like a fallen leaf caught in a gale. Before I could respond, another crack of thunder rolled through the air, this one a clang of finality. The momentary hope was robbed from me, and a cold realization gripped my stomach. I hadn't just stumbled into a revelatory moment, I had stepped deeper into a chasm I might never escape. And the danger was only beginning to unveil itself. The downpour was relentless, mirroring the turmoil in my heart as I stood before Derek. Time seemed to stretch, each moment echoing with the weight of choices made and secrets hidden. I could hardly breathe, taking in the disarray of my emotions as I watched him, once charming and charismatic, now a ghost of the man I loved. "Derek!" I choked out, my voice barely carried by the storm. "What happened to you?" He opened his mouth as if to respond, but nothing came forth. Instead, despair settled in his eyes, dulling the spark that had once drawn me to him. Adrian and Craig flanked me, their presence like sturdy anchors amid the chaos, but the sight of Derek seemed to lessen their resolve. I felt exposed, desperately yearning to bridge the gap between us, yet terrified of what lay on the other side. Derek finally took a step closer, his face shadowed by the relentless rain, misery etched in every line. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered, anguish lacing his words. "It's not safe." A shudder coursed through me, my instincts screamed that the danger he spoke of laced through the winds we stood against. "I came for you," I insisted, my hope flickering for a moment like a candle fighting against the gale. "I had to know. I need to help." His expression twisted, caught between gratitude and regret. "Help?" A bitter laugh escaped him. "This isn't a fairy tale. You can't just swoop in and fix everything." The word struck me hard, crackling like static in the air. I had always believed in the promise of saving someone, but reality was harsher than any romance novel could paint. "But you're worth saving. We can figure this out together." "Figure this out?" His eyes flared with a mixture of anger and frustration. "You don't understand what I've done. I'm entangled in things you can't even comprehend." At that moment, the ground beneath us trembled. In the distance, sirens shrieked, a haunting song of approaching chaos that heightened my anxiety. The reality of our situation settled in like lead in my stomach. Derek's friends, his real friends, were not mere shadows lurking in dark corners. They were powerful, ruthless, and would not hesitate to protect their interests at any cost. "Stop!" I cried, desperate to break through. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm not scared. We can figure out a way to stop." Adrian interrupted, his tone harsh, edging toward panic. "We need to go now. This isn't right, they're coming." Derek's eyes darted behind me, a flicker of awareness that sent my heart racing. "You need to listen to him, Sarah. There's so much at stake. I can't let you get hurt because of me." "Then let me help you." I pleaded again, feeling the straw that could break my heart back threatening to snap. "You don't have to keep shutting me out. I love you. The confession hung in the air, suspended in time. The storm raged on, but a quiet descended around us, as if the world stopped to listen. For a heartbeat, I hoped Derek would see the truth in my words, but the turmoil in his eyes spoke volumes. He took a step back, and it cut deeper than any rush of wind or raindrop. You deserve to be safe, Sarah, he said quietly, the torment in his tone layered with a sorrowful acceptance. His words pierced me. Maybe he was right, but it didn't make the reality any less bearable. A potent scent of betrayal mixed with the rain. The truth was that our paths diverged into darkness, and I was loath to let go. Before I could argue further, the night exploded with blinding light as headlights broke through the haze, illuminating the shadows that smothered us. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop not far from us, the engine purring ominously like a wild beast ready to pounce. My heart thudded wildly, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Get in the car. Craig yelled, urgency coloring his voice. No. I shot back, my gaze locked onto Derek S. I want to leave him. The tension was palpable, the air thick with unspoken farewells and choices left unmade. I couldn't tear my gaze from Derek, fearful that I might miss the last flicker of hope in his expression. But then, a shadow lowered from the SUV. Another figure emerged, tall and intimidating, face obscured by the rain and darkness. Time's up, Derek, the figure drawled, the malicious glee evident even through the tempest. You thought you could hide? Derek's face twisted in terror, and he turned to me, eyes filled with desperation, as if trying to articulate the words supplicating in his throat. Run. Just run. But before I could react, before the horror of that moment could penetrate my mind, adrenaline surged. I felt a strong hand grasp my arm, pulling me backward, away from the man I once thought I understood. He flinched, and the emotional split tore me apart. As they began to close in on him, fear for his safety turned to bone-deep anguish. Sarah. Adrian's voice was a lifeline, and for a split second, I had to choose between my heart and my survival. Every instinct screamed that I needed to protect myself, to listen, but the look on Derek's face, pure anguish mingling with resignation, made that choice heavier than lead, and then they moved in, the storm swallowing them whole. The chaos of the moment blurred the line between reality and nightmare, each heartbeat echoing like a funeral drum. I felt myself being pulled away, torn from Derek's grasp just as the men surrounded him, their hostile presence a suffocating veil of intimidation. The vibrations of fear rolled through me, dancing between the stark contrast of my panic and the agony etched on Derek's face. I was helpless, a witness to the storm of his life, and it brutally stripped me of my resolve. Adrian's grip tightened on my arm, urgency painting his features a pale shade of dread. We need to move. Now. He didn't wait for my response. He dragged me back toward the SUV, and I stumbled, my eyes darting frantically over my shoulder. I wanted desperately to turn back, to run to Derek, to yell out for him, to be the lifeline he desperately needed, but it felt as though my body no longer belonged to me. With every step Adrian forced me to take, I felt the chains of helplessness grow tighter. A high-pitched scream of anguish clawed at my throat, begging to break free, but I swallowed it down as I caught one last glimpse of Derek. His silhouette was dwarfed against the darkness, a lone figure weighed down by shadows closing in around him. That fleeting moment was both seared into my memory and carved into my heart, a haunting reminder of everything I wished I could save and the reality I was helpless to change. The doors slammed shut, and the SUV's engine roared to life, but I felt the world outside shrink to nothing. All that mattered were the fragile emotions swirling within me, fear, sorrow, love, despair. Adrian's grip remained a tether as the vehicle lurched forward, yet I felt as if I was falling into an abyss, a gravity well of uncertainty I couldn't escape. We can't just leave him. I shouted, voice trembling with rage and grief. We have no choice, Sarah. You don't understand what he's involved in. Adrian's tone grew more insistent, desperation boiling beneath his words. These people, they will do whatever it takes. And still, between those desperate sentences, I felt a flicker of defiance igniting within me. I do understand. I saw it in his eyes. You didn't see him, it's like he's fighting himself. Craig, who sat in the passenger seat, twisted around. Sarah, we can't take any more risks. If they're dragging him into this, it's more dangerous than you know. We have to come up with a plan first. We can't just charge in blind. Frustration grew within me, a pulse that echoed louder than the rain drumming against the roof of the car. You're talking about him like he is some kind of monster, but he is not. He is still the man I love. My heart ached, twisting as I tried to hold on to that love while the fear clawed at its edges. Adrian turned his head, eyes softening momentarily before hardening again. And what if it's too late? The silence that followed was heavy like stone, and the weight of his question sat heavily in the air. What if it was too late? I had never believed in too late in love. Every romance novel had taught me that love could conquer all. But this wasn't fiction, this was a reality that gnawed at my heart like a wild beast. As we drove deeper into the night, doubt became my companion, wrapping itself around me like a shroud. The streetlights blurred past, illuminating fleeting moments that felt significant, teasing out memories of laughter, warmth, and connection. The contrast between what we were now and the warmth we had once shared was stark, sickening. Suddenly, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, pulling me from the suffocating thoughts. I fumbled for it, hands trembling. It was a message from Derek. My heart dropped. I'm sorry. I didn't want you to see this. Tears stung my eyes, threatening to spill over. He was sorry. My heart sank, realizing that he felt he had to protect me, even if it meant locking me out of his life. Craig and Adrian discussed murmurings of safe houses and police as I thumbed over the screen, staring at the words that felt so delicate. There is so much I haven't told you, it continued. I never wanted this life for you. Please, tell me what is happening, I sent back in desperation, fingers flying across the screen, every letter a plea. The seconds felt like eons. The world around me was a cacophony of sirens merging with the falling rain, each sound a reminder of the danger searching for him. The response was almost immediate and chilling, unraveling the last threads of my sanity. A single word illuminated the screen: run. My breath hitched as the reality crashed down upon me. The finality echoed with the clarity of a distant thunderclap, a shattering certainty that I was losing him even as I fought for him. The walls of the SUV felt more constricting than ever, a visceral prison holding me captive to a fate that seemed impossibly intertwined with fate's finger. Sarah. Adrian's voice pulled me back, but it felt distant, muted by the roaring tempest of my emotions. Derek, I murmured under my breath, the name a prayer laced with desperation and boundless love. The car turned a corner, tires screeching, and for a fleeting moment, I thought about what it would mean to return, to confront that darkness head-on. As uncertainty danced wildly in my chest, I realized that I was still faced with an impossible choice: protect myself or step into the abyss to save the person who meant everything to me. And then, as if echoing my internal strife, the SUV skidded to a halt. My heart stopped. I glanced up in panic, unable to decipher the chaos looming ahead, as shadows crept toward us from the alleyway. What is happening? That question hung in the air, heavy like the rain, and even as dread filled my veins, I knew whatever lay behind that storm was more perilous than I had ever imagined. That I glanced once more at my phone, the darkest words echoing louder than the storm crashing down around us. They know. Adrian's gaze was fixed on the darkened alley as his knuckles tightened around the steering wheel. The tension in the SUV shifted palpably, morphing from a sense of urgency to outright dread. I could feel panic rising through me like bile, rising until it threatened to choke me. The shadows grew closer, my heart racing against the clock of an unfolding nightmare. What do we do? Craig's whisper hung in the air like a prophecy. I could feel the weight of his fear pressing down on me, making it increasingly difficult to breathe. Adrian's voice came out sharper than I anticipated, filled with steely resolution. We need to get out, find cover, and figure out what is going on. Their presence, it means they're not far behind Derek. They know I'm with you. They must think I'm part of it, I said, my words tumbling out in a desperate rush. The weight of the knowledge that I might be inadvertently putting myself in danger twisted my insides, but what terrified me more was the thought that they might know him, might already have their grip on him. Stay close, Adrian ordered as he unbuckled his seatbelt. There was no room for protest. I knew better than to argue as I followed suit, my voice momentarily silenced by the noise of my thudding heart. The storm outside had begun anew, the kind that shook the ground beneath your feet, and as I opened the car door, the cold rain lashed against my skin like icy fingers. My focus held unwaveringly on the alley that loomed nearby, a doorway shrouded in shadows that felt like a vortex pulling me toward it. Derek may be inside that darkness. I could almost feel his presence, a flickering candle fighting against the storm. Without another word, we hustled into the alley, the smell of wet concrete, refuse, and something more sinister wrapping around us. I peeled my eyes away from the shadows long enough to glance at Adrian. His expression was tight with determination but haunted a man who had seen his share of horrors, yet still opted for battle over retreat. "Where do we go?" I whispered, desperately scanning the shadows that tugged at my peripheral vision. The sound of footsteps echoed behind us. Transitioning from terror to survival demanded every ounce of strength I had left. "We need to find somewhere safe, and then we'll figure out our next move," he said, guiding us past dumpsters and debris, my heart thrumming erratically like a bird trapped in a cage. The sound of the footsteps grew louder. I stole a glance back, dread pooling in my stomach. "They're coming. We have to hurry." A mix between instinct and desperation propelled me forward into a narrow door partially hidden between two piles of crates. The wood creaked ominously as I nudged it open, revealing a dimly lit room that seemed abandoned. We tumbled inside, Adrian quickly pulling the door shut behind us. I turned to find myself in a small storage space, boxes piled high with faded labels obscured by dust. The gloom was comforting yet filled with an unsettling silence, broken only by the pounding of the storm pelting against the roof. My heart felt like it would burst. Before I could catch my breath, Adrian's phone buzzed violently against the wooden crate. He fished it from his pocket in a frenzy, eyes scanning the screen. "Another message from Derek," he muttered, brows furrowing. I held my breath, a lump forming in my throat. "What does it say?" "They're looking for you. You need to leave now. Trust no one." The words clawed at me, instinctual panic rooting me to the spot. "Leave?" I gasped, the urge to defy him springing forth. "We can't just abandon him. Sarah." Adrian snapped, his voice breaking. "We can't help him if we're caught. We need a plan, or we'll become tomorrow's headlines." With each syllable, I felt the world grow heavier around me. Derek was lost in this whirlwind, and now Adrian's plea sent me spiraling deeper into despair. How could I plan without him? He was my anchor, my reason to keep fighting. But the sound of approaching footsteps jolted me back to the present. The slant of light from the room's lone window cast eerie shadows that danced along the rows of crates. My mind was an echo chamber of fleeting thoughts, all focused on one overwhelming certainty: I couldn't let anyone hurt Derek. What if we regroup and find him together? "Adrian, there's gotta be a way," I murmured, desperately searching for hope in our bleak reality. "Get in touch with anyone who can help, but trust no one." "That's the key," Craig interjected, his voice laced with concern. "I know someone who might be discreet." I took a moment to process his words. In a world where trust was as fleeting as the wind, my heart crackled with doubts. Yet, if Craig's network could provide the support we needed, it might be our salvation. "We have to do it, Craig." Tension hung in the air as we surveyed one another, the realization that we were becoming part of something much larger than ourselves weighing heavily in our hearts. The path forward would be fraught with danger, but every beat of my heart insisted on one thing: would not leave Derek behind. Then, a deafening crack filled the small space, drowning out the sound of the storm outside. The door we entered through exploded inward, flinging shards of wood into the air like splintered dreams. A figure stepped through the wreckage. And as the shadows peeled back, clarity ignited within me a reality that shattered my world into unfathomable fragments. "Sarah," the stranger said, voice laced with familiarity. "You need to listen to me." In that single instant, every cascading thought froze. This was not just an ally or enemy. This was someone from my past, someone I never thought I would see again. My breath caught in my throat, because the person who stood before us could either be our salvation or our downfall. And I had no idea which. As the figure advanced, my heart thudded in my chest, a wild flutter that sent trepidation racing through my veins. Was it really him? The memories surged, a hurricane of nostalgia that pulled me back to warm days and sunlit friendships, the days before everything turned. "Leave him alone," Adrian yelled, positioning himself defensively in front of me. The remnants of fear and uncertainty gripped my heart, but through it all, a flicker of recognition emerged. I took a step forward, my voice trembling but resolute. "Nate?" He nodded, the tension on his face mingling with a hint of urgency. "We don't have time. They're closing in, and if you don't come with me now, you'll be caught in the crossfire." The weight of his words crashed over me, the urgency palpable in the dim light. "Why should we trust you?" Craig demanded, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. "You vanished without a trace." Every muscle in my body tensed at Craig's accusation, but before I could respond, Nate's face morphed into something softer, an echo of the boy I once knew. "Because I'm not the enemy here," he insisted, a glimmer of the past igniting the fire in his gaze. "I've been trying to protect you, all of you. You've stumbled into a war far beyond your understanding. Derek's life is at stake. The people seeking him don't just want money, they want revenge." The atmosphere grew thick with emotion. Memories of laughter and shared secrets were now intertwined with moments that boiled over into hurt and betrayal. I looked at Adrian and Craig, my heart a cataclysm of conflicting emotions. Derek may have been caught in a world of danger and secrets, but I felt a connection forming with the boy I had once called a friend. "Tell me everything," I whispered, clasping my hands together, a plea for the answers I desperately needed. "What do we do?" Nate stepped forward, urgency in his voice. "We need to move. They're looking for you already. If you're with me, you'll be safer. I have a safe house where we can regroup, figure out how to help Derek." "Derek," I murmured, my heart breaking as I thought of the man I had once thought was infallible. What if they hurt him? The frightfully fragile piece of hope that still flickered within me clouded with doubt. "Nobody is untouchable, Sarah. I know firsthand what these people are capable of." Nate's tone sharpened. "I lost everything trying to escape them, but if we work together, we stand a chance to get him out unharmed." Adrian met my gaze, the solidarity in his eyes igniting a flicker of hope. Though the past lingered heavily between us, the present offered greater stakes. "We have to try," I said, the weight of decision crashing down. "I want to leave him." Craig sighed, the lines on his face deepening as though understanding the impossible weight of our dilemma. "Fine," he said finally. "But we move quickly. Stay close." As I followed Nate's lead, the world outside the storage room felt surreal. Shadows flickered on the walls while raindrops streaked the windows like tears cascading down a cheek. My heart beat in sync with the urgency carving through the air as we slipped through side alleys, moving farther away from the storm that still roared behind us. With every step, I recalled the moments I shared with Derek, the laughter, the vulnerabilities, and I thought of his pain, how he had kept me at arm's length to ward off the inevitable danger that shadowed him. The truth was, I had never truly understood desperation until this moment, until the fear of losing someone who meant everything wrapped around my throat tightly. A renewed determination surged as our footsteps quieted, pushing into a world of uncertainty. "Are you sure this place is safe?" I turned to Nate, seeking conviction in his eyes. The shadows of uncertainty still danced at the corners of my vision, whispering doubts that I fought earnestly to silence. "It is," he affirmed, the intensity in his voice lending me courage. "For now. You'll have time to breathe and make a plan." We arrived at a nondescript brownstone tucked away in an unassuming avenue. It wasn't much, a refuge misplaced beneath the fatigue of city life, but it stood as a promise against the storm, against the chaos that pursued us. As we pushed through the door, my heart raced, a bevy of emotions clawing at me, all clamoring for expression. Once inside, Adrian stationed himself near the window, keeping watch. Craig filled a glass with water, a semblance of normalcy amidst the brewing chaos, while I allowed myself to breathe the air heavy with past mistakes blending into an uncertain future. Nate glanced back at me, the weight of authentic ties forming as we settled. "I'm sorry for vanishing, Sarah. Things got complicated quickly. I couldn't risk coming back until now." "You could have reached out," I whispered, the memory of trust washed away by the tide of what happened since. "You don't understand," Nate began, but before he could delve into it, the sudden cacophony of footsteps resonated outside. Adrian's eyes widened, alerting us to the danger drawing close. "Stay back," he hissed, positioning himself defensively. The storm outside raged, echoing the tempest within. A flash of shadow moved past the window, a stark reminder that we were still in pursuit of an uncertain end. My heart raced, anticipation blending into fear as I felt my pulse mirror the urgency forging a path. "Let us think this through," Craig urged, eyes darting to the door. "We can't afford to be reckless." Before I could respond, loud bangs resonated against the doorframe, a frantic yet authoritative attempt to break down the entrance. "We need to leave," Nate shouted, determination mixing with urgency. "Now." With no plan at hand, I felt raw terror cascade into my chest. "Derek!" I cried out, hoping against fate that he was safe, finding the courage to pull my heart from its darkened corner, but as the door splintered, reality surged forward like the tide, a rush that carried with it the screams of desperation, shock, and action. At that moment, with certainty ringing inside me, I knew that if I ever wanted to save Derek, I had to step into the dark, to confront the storm I had tried so desperately to fight against. The door blasted open, and a figure loomed darkly in the frame, shadows skewing reality in a way I had never imagined. In those moments where hope hung precariously on the edge, I felt the whisper of fate cradle my heart, reminding me that love could thrive even in the most dangerous moments. "Sarah," the figure hissed, deep and menacing. A voice I had once feared now sparked a rush of memories intertwining pain with resolve. "It's time for the truth." My breath caught, heart racing. With no timeline, no plan, one profound realization coursed through me: I was ready to do whatever it took to save the man I loved. I stepped forward, prepared to face the storm for him. He deserved that fight, and so did I. The chaos erupted around us, shadows closing in, but I could feel the flame of determination ignite inside me. Whatever awaited on the other side, I wouldn't back down. Together, we would dismantle the darkness into which we had stumbled, and from it, we would emerge not as lost souls but as warriors built by love. And as I opened my mouth to speak, the strength of all our shared struggles surged in me, turning my voice into a resolute whisper: "Let us do this."